Okay, just stand on the mark on the floor and say this line for me.
Right here?
Yeah, that's good right there.
All right.
Yep, ready, action.
Okay. Hello everyone, and welcome to our Halloween episode. Wait, I think this needs to be a little spookier for our Halloween episode, right? That's better. I hope you're all ready for a ghoulishly good time. Today we're going to be talking about some of the traditions of Halloween and where they came from. We also have some spooky fun projects for you to do as well. Halloween is my favorite time of the year. This year things might look a little different. Instead of walking through a haunted house, some haunted houses might adapt and have a drive-through haunted house instead. Some of my favorite things about Halloween are the cooler weather, the spooky decorations, and carving jack-o'-lanterns. Have you ever wondered where the tradition of jack-o'-lanterns came from? The term jack-o'-lanterns has been used in America to describe a lantern made from a hollowed-out pumpkin since the 19th century. But the term originated in the 17th century Britain, where it was used to refer to a man with a lantern or a night watchman. At that time, the British often called men whose name they didn't know by a common name like Jack. Thus, an unknown man carrying a lantern was sometimes called Jack with the Lantern or Jack of the Lantern. But where did the idea of lighting up a pumpkin come from? One of the theories is that a Celtic pagan practice in which turnips or other root vegetables were hollowed out, carved with grotesque faces, and then illuminated by coal, wooden embers, or candles as a way to ward off evil spirits is the origin. The custom was carried on by Christians during the Feast of All Hallows Eve, observed on October 31st, the evening before All Saints' Day or All Hallows' Day. More than likely, Irish immigrants brought this custom to America and, finding turnips scarce, used native pumpkins instead. Now that we know how jack-o'-lanterns came about, let's take a look at trick-or-treating. I mean, when you think about it, we don't normally go up to a stranger's house, knock on their door, and ask them for candy. Although the origins of trick-or-treating are not exactly known, the traditions of Halloween have an origin 2,000 years ago in the Celtic festival of Samhain. Samhain was the festival that marked the end of summer and the beginning of winter, which was around November 1st. During the festival, it was believed that the dead returned to Earth. So people gathered, lit bonfires, and offered sacrifices to pay homage to the dead. Some villagers would dress up in costumes made from animal skin to drive away unwanted visitors. Tables were set up and food was left out to please unwelcomed spirits. Much later on, people began dressing up as ghosts, demons, and other creatures and would perform acts in exchange for food and drink. Over many years, this tradition would morph and change. The Halloween that we know and love today stems from just after World War II. After the war, candy companies were no longer constricted by sugar rationing. Because of this, they launched national advertising campaigns specifically aimed at Halloween and candy sales. It became a consumer-targeted holiday that still continues to this day. Something else that goes along with Halloween is being scared. Lots of people like to be scared, but why is that? There are many ways to get scared. Riding a roller coaster, watching a scary movie, bungee jumping, and walking through a haunted house. These have one thing in common: the safety net. Even though these activities are scary, you know that you're safe while partaking in these activities. So basically, you're enjoying the controlled fear. Also, when we get scared, we experience a rush of adrenaline and also a release of endorphins and dopamine. Have you ever heard of the fight or flight response? It's a leftover instinct our bodies use when we're scared. We either fight what's scaring us or we run off as quickly as possible. Adrenaline gives us the energy we need to complete these tasks as quickly as possible. Endorphins and dopamine are chemicals produced in the brain that make our brain feel good. That's why when someone scares you, a moment or so later you start laughing and the scare becomes funny.
No, you hang up first.
The Halloween we know and love today looked very different when the traditions were first started. Over many years, the traditions have morphed and changed. However, it's still fun to pretend to be ghouls and goblins. There's a lot of other folklores and stories about Halloween, but the question remains, what scares you?
Since Halloween as we know it now evolved from the ancient Samhain festival, the fear of Halloween is called Samhainaphobia.
Hi, Kid Lexa.
Hi, can I help you?
Tell me something I can create with pumpkins when Halloween is over.
Sure. Pumpkin pancakes, pumpkin bread, pumpkin spaghetti sauce, pumpkin ice cream, pumpkin cookies.
Okay, thanks, Kid Lexa. I think I'm gonna make pumpkin ice cream.
Pumpkin popcorn, pumpkin butter, pumpkin candy. Pumpkin popcorn, pumpkin butter, pumpkin candy, pumpkin lip gloss, pumpkin water, pumpkin applesauce, pumpkin chocolate chip cookies.
For you witches and ghouls who want to spook your friends and family, sounds are needed in order to create the mood. Let me show you how to create some spooky sounds. Right here I have a bottle. And I'm going to open up the bottle and try and make some musical spooky sounds. Ready? Spooky. What other sounds can we make? You can look in your kitchen and identify any baking racks. I have one right here. Ooh. Imagine what you can create. Ooh, spooky. Or you can take some foil and try and shake it. Spooky. What sounds can you make at home?
What kind of monster is the best dancer?
The boogeyman.
Try this.
Do you ever go for a walk and think to yourself, those fallen leaves are beautiful and they need to come home with me? You're not alone. I'm going to show you how to do a quick craft where we'll take nature's beauty and turn it into creepy zombie heads. Come on.
Here's a good spot. Be sure not to get leaves that are too wet or soggy because the paint won't stick as well. The more colorful, the better for delightfully disgusting zombies that will look like they're decomposing. Ooh, this is a good one.
If you need to wipe any dust from your leaf, you can wipe it gently with a napkin and then get ready to paint your masterpiece. We'll use black paint to block out some eyes and maybe a sunken mouth sagging on one side. I like this craft because it doesn't have to be perfect. You can make your zombie look really scary or really goofy if you want. I think that's good for the black. Maybe I'll add a little stitch on the side of his face. Okay. Now I'm going to add some details. We'll do some whites for the eyes. Maybe we'll do a few teeth here and there. Like if it missed, some of its teeth fell out. And I'll get a little bit of red and mix it into the eye too and make it look kind of bloodshot. That'll make it look even more creepy. And you can go back in and add as many details as you want. There's a little indication of a nose. Maybe I'll add some green. I think I need to wipe that off. Let's do a little bit of green for some snot for the nose. Maybe a little bit more black for the pupils. I think that zombie is good to go. I think this one's done. What do you think? Now all you have to do is let it dry and find some brains to feed it.
Are there monsters under your bed keeping you awake at night? Stop losing time in your night and day. Get your hands on Monster Spray. Just one spray is 100% guaranteed to get rid of the ghouls, goblins, aliens, Bigfoot, leprechauns, the chupacabra, zombies, one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eaters, and many other things that go bump in the night. All of this can be yours for free. Just mix water and glitter.
Greetings, ghouls and goblins. It's Halloween, and I do declare that it's time to create a haunting scare. Follow along. Yes, you. Come and watch and see how a wee little box creates fright and glee. First, you'll find and take a box of 3 or 2, then wrap it, then seal it with some type of glue. Then you'll carefully create a hole on the side, but not too big. You'll have creepy things to hide. Try wet spaghetti and label it squirming worms. Their imagination will fly because they can't see to confirm. A banana peel feels like freshly peeled skin. And the raisins in this box, taste just like chicken. The things in the box will cause laughs, maybe screams, maybe shock. What other horrifying things can you place inside the box?
Oh, crystal ball! What do you call 2 witches sharing an apartment? A broommates!
Fear of the number 13 is called triskaidekaphobia. It's more than a superstition. Some people think 13 is a really unlucky number and avoid it at all costs. Businesses caught on, and some even stopped labeling things as number 13, so a tall building might go straight from 12 to 14, skipping the 13th floor entirely. That's a serious case of triskaidekaphobia.
I don't know about you, ghouls and goblins, but I'm pretty hungry. I could use a healthy snack to help me refuel. How about you? Alright, let's go to the kitchen. Our first snack that we're making together today is our witch's broom made out of a cheese stick and a stalk of celery. First things first, we don't need this entire stalk of celery, that's crazy. So we're gonna just chop off this top bit. My kiddos use a butter knife. We don't need that. And now we're gonna just take about 4 inches and make another cut right there. Now we have the part for our broomstick, and this will make the bristles. Now we're gonna cut that cheese stick into 3 parts because it will make 3 witches' brooms. Alright, now that that part is done, now we need to cut 3 skinny broomsticks out of our celery stalk. Now that we have all 3 broomsticks, I'm going to show you what I mean when I say we want a really skinny broomstick. We want it to be kind of triangular. And then we're going to cut these up next. Now that step 2 is done, we're going to turn these into broom bristles. We're going to take the butter knife and we're going to make 3 little cuts. Make sure you don't cut all the way up because we need part of it to hold it all together. So we've got our 3 bits of broom bristle. Push them out a little bit. Now that those are all ready, I'm going to take the broomstick and we're going to stab it directly into the top of our cheese broom bristles. And there you have it. There's 1 and 2. This is why they need to be pretty skinny. And 3. Perfect for a spooky snack.
Pumpkin noodles, pumpkin yogurt, pumpkin marshmallows, pumpkin. Pumpkin bread, pumpkin spaghetti sauce, pumpkin ice cream, pumpkin cookies.
It's time for Shakespeare Says.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble.
This has been Shakespeare Says.
What's a witch's favorite subject in school? It's spelling!
Sesquipedaliophobia literally means fear of long words, but someone thought that wasn't long enough, so they made it longer, as a joke. Adding monstro, like monster, and hippopoto, I bet you can guess where that one came from, to make hippopotomonstro sesquipedaliophobia. Hippopotomonstro sesquipedaliophobia. Now that you know how to say it and what it means, that's one long word you don't have to fear.
It's that time of year where we all like reading stories about things that go bump in the night. Ghouls and goblins gather round. Let's talk about a few. The 13 Ghosts by Geronimo Stilton. In this first series installment, Creeperella von Cacklefur and her niece Shiverine visit scary Squeakspeare Mansion. There, they meet Bobby Squeakspeare, a descendant of the famous writer William Squeakspeare. Will the spooky rooms and ghosts they find inside the mansion be friendly or frightening? That's up to you to find out. I give this a 2 out of 10 on the spookometer for scariness. The School is Alive by Jack Chabert. In this book, Sam Graves discovered that his elementary school is alive. Sam finds this out on his very first day as the school hall monitor. Sam must defend himself and his fellow students against the evil school. Is Sam up to the challenge? Read it to find out. I give this a 1.5 on the spookometer for scariness. Coraline by Neil Gaiman. The day after they moved in, Coraline went exploring. In her family's new house, there are 21 windows and 14 doors. 13 of those doors open and close. The 14th is locked, and on the other side is only a brick wall, until one day Coraline unlocks the door to find a secret passage into another house just like her own. Almost. Will this other dimension get to keep Coraline, or will she escape? Read it to find out. I give this a 5 on the spookometer for spookiness. It made me shiver when I read it. Don't forget to check out these titles and others on the Fort Worth Public Library website at fortworthlibrary.org.
Phobia means the fear of, and arachnid means spider. So this means arachnophobia is the fear of spiders. Are you afraid of the itsy bitsy spider?
Wow! What makes a scary story scary? According to R.L. Stine, it's the combination of the familiar with the shocking, unnatural, or grotesque. Many scary stories start out with a common experience like moving into a new house or going to summer camp, and then step off of the path of the known into the deep, dark unknown. Is it scarier for a robot in space to encounter a bad guy, or someone like you, dear reader, to read about a bad guy creeping into a house like yours or your neighbor's? It's definitely scarier to read about something that resonates. The bad guys can be unnatural, like googly-eyed plant monsters, or natural, like a person who does bad things, or even something in between that seems to be in the natural category but slowly becomes more unnatural as the story progresses. I think it's super scary when the unknown is used to increase the tension. If I don't know what's coming after me, it's much, much scarier than knowing it's a werewolf who will turn into a monster at the full moon. Stephen King, a master at crafting scary stories, says there are 3 types of horror you can try on your audience. Terror is when something is in the dark with you, but you can't see it. You can hear it breathing and sense it from the corner of your eye, but when you turn to look, it's gone. Horror is when zombies rise from the grave and start yelling about brains. Or when insects get huge, like the size of a car, like in that movie Godzilla. Last, you have the gross out or the yuck factor. And that's when you have decayed or rotten things, blood everywhere, or something green and slimy that spatters down from the ceiling and lands on your hand. The type of scare you choose to use will be important, but don't forget to include a main character. Build them up into something like a real person with wants and fears and reactions to the monster. That's the real key to getting your audience to buy into your story. Next, Miss Kim will demonstrate by telling a scary story. Stay tuned!
Gather round, little children, and I will tell you a spooky story. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Lucy who was very excited about moving to a new house. She was going to have her own room for the very first time. Lucy loved her bedroom on the first floor near the back of the house by the old oak tree. The first night, her parents went to bed. Then Lucy went to bed. She was in her room all by herself in the dark when she heard a tap, tap, tap outside her window. She looked outside to see a woman with long, wild black hair and pale white face, long bony fingers, and long red fingernails. The woman cried out, "Lucy, do you know what I can do with my long red fingernails and my ruby red lips?" Lucy cried out, "No, and I don't want to know." She slammed the window shut and jumped in bed. She pulled the covers over her head and did not move all night. The next night, when she went to bed, she heard that same sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was her window. She was so scared, but then she went to the window and heard, "Lucy, do you know what I can do with my ruby red nails and my ruby red lips?" "No!" Lucy yelled, and she was so scared that she ran to her bed and stayed under the covers all night. The next night when she went to bed, she heard a tap, tap, tap by her window. "Lucy, do you know what I can do with my ruby red nails and my ruby red lips?" Again, she yelled, "No!" and slammed the window. She stayed in her closet all night. The next night when she went to bed, she pulled the pillow over her head. But soon she could hear that same sound. Tap, tap, tap. "Lucy, what can I do with my ruby red nails and my ruby red lips?" At this point, Lucy was tired. She was upset and she needed some sleep. Lucy got up and said, "Every night you do this. I don't know what you can do with your ruby red nails and your ruby red lips, and I don't care. You answer your own question. What can you do with your nails and your lips?" And then the creature looked at the girl and smiled hideously and slowly reached up with her long red fingernail and reached toward her big red lips and went. The end! Happy Halloween!
Do you want to deliver some spine-chilling storytelling of your own? Here's some tips. The first is, you don't need any fancy tools. It is effective to dim the lights or tell your story around a dark campfire, but you don't need any fancy lighting or effects. You can do a lot with your facial expressions, your tone of voice, the way that you look. You really want to be afraid of the story. Otherwise, your audience isn't going to be afraid. Your facial expressions and the way that you move are really going to set the tone for your audience. So practice some scared facial expressions in the mirror. You don't want to get too over dramatic because you don't want to take people out of the story, but it does help to have a little bit of dramatics. Think about the way that you're using your voice. So if you are just talking in your normal voice, That may be a good way to start the story, but when things start to get a little spooky, you might want to slow down, maybe get a little quieter. Take your time. Pausing for dramatic effect builds suspense. And practice. If you have to pause to remember the words to your story, it's really going to take your audience out of the mood that you've worked so hard to create. So practice your story over and over to make sure that it's really easy to tell, and maybe practice using a mirror and looking at your facial expressions to see how you're doing setting the scene. Now you can write your own scary story using the tips and tricks that Olivia gave us. You can also read one. I recommend In a Dark, Dark Room by Alvin Schwartz, Scary Stories for Young Foxes by Christian McKay Heidecker, or Terrifying Tales to Tell at Night, selected by Stephen Jones. I'm going to be demonstrating some of these tips by reading the first and last stanza of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. It's really the original Creepmaster. I'm going to dim the lamps and put a light down at my feet to throw some light up at my face and make it a little dramatic. You ready? Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore. Happy Halloween.
What should I dress up as for Halloween?
Grab a pillow, some cardboard, and a brown t-shirt, and you're smart. Smart or less.